Welcome to the Awe and Wonder podcast. I'm Sarah Kinsella.
And I'm Brenda Del Monte.
We are in Series 9, Neurodiversity in Education and in Life. Today we're joined by Ivanova Smith, who is a Community Collaborations Program Manager here in Washington State for the Developmental Disability Community Services. And we invited Ivanova to join the podcast today because Ivanova and I share a space professionally on the Inclusionary Practices Technical Assistance Network, which is part of an OSPI project in Washington State, where educators are working collaboratively to support school districts with inclusionary practices. And so as part of that work, we meet, maybe once a month, and as a group, as a practice, and we talk about a problem of practice and have a conversation and how that's going. And in one meeting that I had, Ivanova was in my group and she started sharing some of her experiences of being in school and in special education and inclusion. And I had to just email her right away. Ivanova, I was so excited to hear from you, and your story is so powerful. And every time you're in one of our meetings, you share the most amazing experiences and things for us to think about. So we're so happy to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Ivanova Smith, and I have brown hair with red glasses and olive skin, and I am wearing a green button-down shirt. Well, I will start from the real beginning. So I actually didn't start my life in this country. I started it in Soviet-occupied Latvia in 1988. I lived in an institution for 5.5 years. I was separated from my birth mother at birth. I couldn't speak. I didn't really know what life was. The institution was not they didn't run things like a family. It was a very institutional environment. Like, we didn't even celebrate birthdays or holidays, and every day was the same. And we had no property. Like, I had no toys of my own. Even the clothes we wore were shared. And I was adopted when I was 5.5, and I was just babbling. But now I can't shut up.
Making up for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I was adopted in 1994 after Latvia gained its independence. I also gained my liberty, and I was brought here to the United States by an American family who loves me dearly. They're the Andersons, and they really loved me and raised me up in a Christian home, and really taught me that I had an equal opportunity to a full life. And they wanted me to have a full education. And so they really fought for me in school to have a full education. My mother would sit in the hallway and teach me how to read. And
At school?
that's what really, yeah, at school. Yeah. Because they didn't think that I could learn how to read.
When you were in elementary school, you
Yeah.
weren't being taught how to read because were you included at that point, or were you in?
I was I was like in a contained, but my parents were like pushing for me to be in general ed. But I was put on an IEP because I was not speaking, and I had just come out of an institution, so I was held back in kindergarten twice. And then when I was in the first to second grade, they had me in the general ed class, but I wasn't doing I didn't know what I was doing, and they kept pulling me out and having me in this other class. I was really confusing. And so I kept being, like most kids in elementary school, you stay in one classroom. I was being taken out of, I was being put in every other classroom. Like, it was really confusing.
Right, you're missing
And
instruction, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it made it really hard for me to relate with my peers, especially my non-disabled peers, because I kept being taken out of class. And the other students started to like resent me for that, especially for like PE, because I couldn't do the running. I wasn't allowed to run at the time because I was born with club feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I had multiple surgeries. Even when I was in the institution, I had surgeries on being clubfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't run, and the other students were very angry that I wasn't allowed to run because
Mm,
they had to run.
mm,
Mm.
And I wanted it, and I didn't. And um, I was um, I was what I jokingly say this. I call myself the hot potato sped kid
Mm.
because I was bounced back and forth, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was because my parents were fighting the school to keep me mainstreamed, to
mm,
not be segregated. But the
mm.
school kept trying to segregate me. And so that's why I was getting bounced back and forth.
Mm. Okay.
And so there would be times I would be in a self-contained classrooms all day. And then other days I was in the mainstream classroom. And so I never really got to know my peers because they were
Yeah.
all different.
It's hard to
And
build a sense of belonging when you're popping all over the place.
yeah,
That's part of the reason you weren't learning to read. Also, you weren't consistently being taught to read, it sounds like, and you
yeah,
were moving a hot potato all over. So your
yeah.
mom decided to change that.
Yeah, my mother sat in the hallway and she used flashcards of little visuals with the word to help me memorize words.
Mm.
And I would start memorizing words and letters. And when I got to the second grade, I was able to understand letters for the first time in the second grade.
Hmm.
And I couldn't read yet, but I learned how to read eventually by the fourth grade. And so fourth grade is when I finally was able to read my first book.
Mm.
And it was a book about Abraham Lincoln. And
Mm,
that's the first book I remember reading, the book about Abraham Lincoln and a book about his um, Victorian schoolhouses. There was another book I read about Victorian schoolhouses and that was another thing. My mom saw that I had an interest in history and was like, I'm going to use that to motivate. And my dad used military epaulets
Mm.
from his military uniforms to encourage me. Because when I would memorize a set of note cards that my mom would have me practice, then he would give me a new rank. And so,
Oh,
so I got to like major.
I love that. Oh my gosh, your
Yeah.
parents
So
sound like educators. They sound like,
yeah.
yeah, they were really smart. My parents were so smart. They just didn't give up on me. And they didn't believe that I didn't deserve, they didn't believe that I couldn't. They
Mhm,
believed they'd figure out a way. They
mhm,
always try to figure out a way
mm.
instead of saying, oh, well. But one thing they hard though is I didn't get to really be with my community because my parents really kept me separate from people with disabilities because they had a lot of fears. I think it was out of fear, but it still was made it hard for me to get to develop true friendships and have feel like I belong and things like that. Because I was always having to be in places where I knew I wasn't wanted. And there were a lot of times when I was in the gen ed classes, the non-disabled students would literally tell me, nobody wants you here.
Oh,
mhm.
I'll never forget this, but in high school, students said to me that it would have been better if my birth mother aborted me
oh,
Wow.
because because of my disabilities.
that's terrible. I'm so
And that
sorry you had to experience that.
and
Yeah.
it just made me even more passionate to want to live. And like,
Mm,
wait, no, I I I should be happy that I got to be born and I'm thankful to be born. Why would you say I shouldn't be born?
mhm,
Yeah.
And so like that really installed with me my passion about um seeing people with intellectual disabilities with value and
mhm,
that we have the right to life.
mhm,
And so that was really hard for me to have to experience that in school. I experienced a lot of bullying. I experienced a lot of segregation, but then I experienced like forced forced mainstreaming where it's like you're just kind of forced to a place where you're not wanted, but you're not being really supported there.
Hmm.
I did have some good parents. When I was in elementary school and junior high, I had some good parents that did were really supportive of me. But school was really hard for me because I knew I wasn't wanted. And it
Mm.
was just really hard to just try to, keep my head up high. And my parents really, I don't think they really understood the struggles I was going through because I couldn't hide myself. And their solution was you need to hide yourself.
Mm.
And I couldn't hide myself. And
Mm.
I think that was really hard on my parents. They didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do either. Um, I didn't really get to have pride in my identity. I had to hide my identity.
Okay.
And I didn't know a bunch about it until I found my old diagnostic documents and I started actually reading my IEPs.
Mm.
And I didn't get to really access my IEPs until my senior year.
Mm.
And I wish I had more access to them. And I more like one-on-one time with the counselors to be like, hey, this is why you're on this. Like somebody to explain it all to me because nobody
Yeah.
really explained to me why am I on IEP? Why am I putting in these different classes? Why am I getting picked on all the time? Because I was getting blamed for being picked on, and that was really hard.
So
I
you
just
didn't attend your own IEP meetings?
I did in high school, but
Okay.
in elementary school they didn't let us attend our own
Mhm.
IEP meetings. They went
Okay.
to my IEP meetings without me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I would always be scared when they came back because they would come back cranky
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and be like, "You did this and this, and we heard you did this and that," and so they would be really cranky after my IEP meetings. It made me always hate my IEP meetings
Mhm.
because, I mean, I'm not saying this to disparage my parents. I really love them and I'm really
Yes.
thankful. I think that it was just really hard on them
Mhm.
to deal with. And I think the schools were trying to tell them, I can't, I can't, I
Yeah.
can't. And my parents didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to keep pushing me. That's what was going on.
I agree with you. I bet your parents didn't enjoy the IEP meetings either, right?
No.
It wasn't something they were looking
Yeah.
forward to. And they know how wonderful you are. They know you have certain struggles just like everybody does, right? But as educators, we tend to use those IEP meetings to say all the things that you're not doing yet, right? Instead of
Yes.
here's the things that are going well, here's where we, what we want to work on. So I think that's really good for the audience to hear, just as a reminder, just that those IEP meetings are tough. And you brought up so many things, just the fact that you didn't learn about your disability. And so you're struggling this two worlds of straddling these two worlds of pushing for inclusion, but also pushing for identity within your disability community.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
fascinating. And, you know, Ivanova, that reminds me also of something that you talked about, um, a friend of yours who had a really different experience than you.
Um, they were a really good friend and we went to school together and they were just one grade under me. I was like when we first met, I was in eighth grade and they were in seventh grade. And it was just really hard to see that I got to have so much more education
Mm.
and opportunities.
Hmm.
And I was, at the time when I was graduating, I was really angry at my parents for keeping me from my disability community. And I didn't realize that they were keeping me from the discrimination that my friend was experiencing.
Mm.
Mm.
And I had to watch my friend experience discrimination in the transition programs, experience discrimination just trying to be seen as an adult, and they're still not being respected that way, I don't
Mm.
think.
Mm.
Um, Hearing like things about people saying things about them and about us and oh, you're mentally children and you can't handle this and that. And
Mm.
my friend being shamed for things that they should be just educated on.
Mhm.
And I was given the education, like I was given, my parents were very adamant to give me really important information about my body, and I was allowed to ask my parents questions about body parts.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
My mother would have times where, like, if I needed to ask her a question about what's that, she was okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But my, but other people with IDD don't have a safe space to ask those questions, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times their parents shame them and
Mm-hmm.
say they're not allowed to ever have any interests around those areas or
Mm-hmm.
have any questions or have any desire for more educational opportunities.
Ivanova, can I pause for just 1 second? I just want to share you used an acronym IDD, and just in case
Oh, I'm
listeners.
sorry. Intellectual and developmental disability. I apologize.
Thank you. No, that's
Yeah.
great. Thanks for clarifying that. And so in I think most like typical gen ed classrooms, at some point, kids learn about those
Yeah.
things, right? They learn about their body and
Mm-hmm.
health and all of that.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that that's not true for
That's not
everyone.
true. There are a lot of people that are not being even taught about like just the basics about like, puberty. Like
Mm.
my I've friends coming up to me asking me questions like my body just did this and
So what you're talking about is so many assumptions being made about the
yes.
label of intellectual disability that's assuming that certain conversations are above their head or they won't
Yeah.
understand it. But the reality is not explaining it is far more dangerous.
It's far more dangerous, and I've seen this. People need to be given education on. We
Hmm.
all need to be getting education on preparing for adulthood. It doesn't matter what your IQ is.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter what your assessment or what your IEP says.
Mm-hmm.
Schools and parents need to be supported in teaching all people, no matter if they're not speaking, no matter how high their support needs are. We all need to be educated on how to keep ourselves safe,
Mm-hmm.
what is happening with our bodies with puberty, and
Mm-hmm.
also sex education. We
Mm-hmm.
all need to be given that to prepare for adulthood so that we can keep ourselves safe, so that we can know about consent, so we can know about how to find love
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have those experiences safely. Because
Mm-hmm.
we deserve to be able to have those experiences safely in a way that is successful and good, not in a way that we get hurt or another person gets hurt
Mm-hmm.
or we get set up for because of a lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so our education system, our network of education really needs to end the use of mental age theory. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities grow up, we become adults, we get puberty.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
We become, when we're teenagers, our hormones are raging.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be supported in knowing why our hormones are raging
Hmm.
because it's both females and males. And we need to be given education on how to keep ourselves safe and how to feel good about our bodies. Like, I
Yeah.
have a lot of body dysmorphia, body dysphoria,
Mm-hmm.
because um puberty was very traumatic. Puberty is really hard on people with IDD. When you have more medical things going on, when you have more medical and developmental things going on and neurological things going on, it affects puberty, and we need to be given way better support from our
Hmm.
schools around puberty.
You mentioned something, you said people with high support needs. In this podcast series, we're talking a lot about neurodiversity. What does that look like? Understanding that brains work in different ways and neurodiversity affirming practices at school. And when you said high support needs, it reminded me of something that I think you did not find as a neurodiversity affirming practice, which was the label above the classroom. Can you talk
Yeah,
to us about
so
that?
yeah, so in my high school, they called the self-contained classroom high needs. And then they had a different classroom called academic assistance. And that was for more the higher functioning people with people with disabilities. It wasn't just people with intellectual disabilities. But they would classify us students by different names.
And that's what it
And
said on the, like it
yeah, it
listed
literally
that
said it
above the door.
on the door, yeah. And
Mm.
they changed it to behavioral room. They thought changing it to behavioral classroom would be better. After 2 years, they
So
changed it. And it was like,
Is that
that's
that's
better?
not,
not better.
that's not doing it.
Mm-mm.
So what would be a neurodiversity affirming label to put above your door?
So I think that we shouldn't have to be in a separate class. We
Mm,
should not have to be segregated. If we need to have a space for individual instruction, like one-on-one instruction, then have an room like that, that's open space for that, for a person to be able to, if they need to step away from the regular class with all the noise and students, they have a spot where they can do the academic instruction more one-on-one with a para. So I'm not against having those options, but the self-contained classroom, the way it's designed, they had it looking like a kindergartner
mm.
classroom, and they even had like a little sink in there, like it was a kindergartner classroom.
And you were in high
They
school.
had all the like in a high school. Yeah, this was, and this high school was freshly built. The high school was built in 2005, and I was the first one of the first classes to go into that high school, and that's what they named it, high needs, and
Mm.
they designed that classroom to look like all colorful kitty stuff on the walls,
Mm.
cartoons everywhere. They had all these little, knitted stuff for the students, individuals with the little names, with the little colorful cartoons, like,
Mm.
look. And it
Mm,
was all about having fun, and there was no academics. They didn't even like, they would do like extra spirit days, and they would have the students in the self-contained classroom, the full timers wear pajama. They would have a special pajama day for all the self-contained classroom
mm.
students. And so they would have students with intellectual disabilities walking around in their pajamas when it wasn't pajama day for the rest of the school.
Mm.
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 And so it
Yeah.
was a humiliation ritual. And so I actually had some internalized ableism. I wanted to stay out of that class as much as possible because I had bad experiences being a self-contained in middle school too, because the teacher there was really pro mental age theory and treated everyone in her class like they were kindergartners. And I remember experience I had a student was just reading a Bible, and this is in middle school. They were just reading a Bible, and the teacher takes the Bible away during silent reading time and says, "You're not allowed to read your Bible." And I told the student about the civil rights because I was still hot potato, so I was being bounced around, and I got to get into a history class, and so I had a history textbook with the Bill of Rights, and I showed the student that part in the textbook, and I said, "You have the right to freedom of speech and
Mm.
freedom of religion. That means you have the right to bring your Bible and read your Bible during silent reading time. You should talk to your parents about getting your Bible back because you have the right to read that Bible." I got kicked out of the self-contained classroom for doing that. That's how you get that's how you get kicked out of a self-contained classroom. Any students with IDD, you want to know how to get kicked out of a self-contained classroom? You whistle blow.
Mm.
You whistle
So,
Well,
blow.
that was a lot of information. First of all, for those that don't know what mental age is, when I do
So
communication device evaluations, oftentimes parents will tell me, I might be doing an evaluation on a 4 or 5 or 6 year old, sometimes even a 10-year-old, and the parents are saying, my doctor has said they're functioning at a 9 month level, or something that is absolute bonkers to me, as these are human beings that have been on this planet for 5, 6, 10 years and have been listening to language and learning for 5, 6, 10 years. However old they are is how long they've been on the planet learning. Just because they're expressive language or they're not speaking, their speaking language does not match typical peers, doesn't make them a 9 month old. 9 month old gets thrown out there because 9 month olds don't talk. And so it's very interesting that that's ever taken on, and it actually starts at the physician level. So
yeah.
the changing the vocabulary around that means going to professionals more medically inclined than educators around that. And so there's a lot of education required around that label.
Yes.
Second, you teaching everyone else how to get kicked out of self-contained is hilarious for me. But that actually brings us to a recent initiative that you started about nothing about us without us. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so the Nothing About Us Without Us Act allows people with direct lived experience to be involved with legislative work groups, task force, and committees that directly impact them. Originally, it was inspired by my advocacy trying to get self-advocate leaders who had experience being in our state institutions and who had also lived in the community. I was trying to help them get onto a work group around those issues, and I kept being told no. And I said, that's
Mhm.
it, I'm going to make a law against this.
Mhm.
So I gathered up the self-advocate community and I said, we need to make a law against this to say that they have to include us. They can't leave us out because that's not right for them to not have had any lived experience living in an institution or living in community with services, getting to talk about us without us.
Mhm.
And so we went and lobbied to all the legislators. We went to each legislative office at the Capitol, knocked on each door, and say, "Hey, anybody interested? This is our language. We really want a bill." And one of the legislators took the bait, Representative Paulette. Very grateful to him for being our first primary sponsor for the Nothing About Us Without Us Act. Originally, it was around people with disabilities and making sure we were included on work groups around disability issues. But then we realized in our efforts, it needed to be broader. This doesn't just affect people with disabilities. It affects people of color. It affects people, with land rights disputes. It affects farmers, it affects veterans, it affects this whole gambit of people that, the legislature makes work groups about, different policies about different people and their lives and their rights. And the Nothing About Us Without Us Act is really about making sure that, hey, with this policy, this representation, there's no policy without representation.
Mhm.
That's really the spirit of the Nothing About Us Without Us Act, and I'm very proud to say that it got passed in 2024
Wow.
in March, and I'm very my baby. And so now we're in the implementation process, and I'm really lucky through my work with Developmental Disability Community Services. Now we're actually changing our name back to Developmental Disability Administration. Really excited to be helping in the implementation and making sure that Developmental Disability Administration is following the law.
It's amazing that a law was required for that, that we were making laws about people for people without their voice at all in any arena, right? In any like you said, even outside of disability, in any space. But the fact that you recognize that the power of if we make this a law, then we can actually make real change. Because we could all sit around and say, this is the right thing to do, and it still won't be done. And
Yeah,
until a law is in place and enforced, then we really aren't doing what we can to include the voices that need to be heard on every issue that's when laws are being made around, a community of people, a subset of people, however you want to, whatever, like you said, farmers, right? No laws should be made without the input from the people that it's going to directly be impacting.
yeah. And that's really the value in it, and it's beautiful that I was able to build a huge coalition around it and gain many allies and support. And one thing that was really exciting is it became bipartisan. It was
Mhm.
because we Republic on the floor, several Republican senators like, oh wait, would this allow like veterans to be on the veterans? Policy stuff? They're like,
Mhm. Right.
yeah, it would. Oh, what
Mhm.
about police officers who've had to deal with violent situations or their spouses who've lost their uh police officer spouses, two different
Mhm.
situations. Like, would this, and would this be a positive impact on them? And it's like, yes, it would.
Mhm. Yeah.
Both parties had to be at the table for those type of things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so um, it actually got both sides really excited, and it was a really unifying law. So
That's
that's
amazing.
what it's all about. It's really
Yeah.
about unifying people and saying nothing about us without us, no policies without our representation.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's definitely something to be proud of. And in the position that you're in now, you can keep working on it, like you said. And it makes me think about, coming back to the schools, like if as they were designing your high school and they were designing it not too long
Yeah.
ago for that, like, kindergarten feel you were saying, right? Your high school.
Yeah,
And what if they had talked to somebody like you before doing that,
Yeah.
right?
yeah. I would have encouraged them to support students in the mainstream classes, but give them actual support in those classes and modify the materials in a way that they can still express their knowledge in the way they can express it, and don't deny them the materials.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Using age
Um,
appropriate materials.
yeah, like using age appropriate. Like people with intellectual disabilities deserve to learn about the Civil War,
Hmm.
about World War II. Like that's another thing is we're not even being taught history. Like I had peers, when I became an adult and I was like in Special Olympics and I would like try to talk about a historical event or and they would be like, "What are you talking about? We don't Civil War, what's that?" Or, "Oh, you mean that movie?" Like they would think it was a movie
Mhm.
Hmm.
because that was the only reference
Hmm.
to historical events as movies. And a lot of people with intellectual disabilities are not taught about their rights, about the Bill of Rights, and that's why they don't vote. You wonder why
Mhm.
people just don't have any interest in voting. Well, nobody taught them why it's important. Like,
Mhm.
why would anybody want to look at the black and white pictures and you
Mhm.
look at the pamphlet information and it's just a big paragraph and it's very
Yeah.
inaccessible and it's just like this is
The-
overwhelming. I'm just gonna click a box. I don't know these people,
Mhm.
right.
and
Yeah.
so a lot of people with IDD, a lot of times they're told, oh, well, then you'll have to sign up for the selective service. That I had a friend who literally thought that. He's like, "Oh, I'm not voting." I'm like, "Why don't you want to vote?" And he said, "I don't want to be drafted." And
Mm.
I'm like, "Yeah,
Oh.
buddy, you just tell them your diagnosis. Don't worry, you will not be drafted. You still
Mm.
have the right to vote." I
It's
had to
very
reassure people
particular.
that they had the right to vote because my parents, they instilled that. They had me watch them vote when I was
Mm.
17. They were like, "Oh, we got our ballots. Come, kids, I want you to come watch us." My parents taught me how to vote.
It makes me think about life skills.
Yeah,
We use that term in the special needs community. Sometimes it was frustrating for me because they would be like, "Oh, we've dropped up academics. We're doing life skills," as if reading and writing is not a life skill. And so we've
yeah,
dropped reading and writing because we haven't made gains. And that's not because they don't have the ability to read or write. It's because we haven't learned how to teach all types of learners
yeah.
how to read and write. So since we don't know how to teach you differently, we're just going to teach different skills. And so those life skills, for those of you who don't know, sometimes that's making a grocery list or loading a dishwasher or folding laundry or things like that.
Like literally
But
cleaning the school.
literally,
Yeah, and
the
the
hard labor
unpaid
type stuff.
labor,
Yeah,
that's
hard labor
another
job.
thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, when I was in junior high and I was in the self-contained classroom, they did that with that. They actually had us deliver coffee to the non-disabled classes, to the
Hmm.
teachers, right when they were in class. And so you would have the non-disabled students watching the disabled students
Hmm.
delivering this coffee to the teachers, and we weren't being paid for that work.
And I
But
remember being at the table there, and and parents and advocates alike saying, "Yes, let's do it because it's an employable skill." And I understand the heart behind a course that they are calling life skill. But as you and I are talking now, what is the life skill of an adult in the United States of America? What are the life skills? And a major life skill is to understand your own rights,
Yeah.
to
And that,
understand the law, to understand your rights, to understand your body, to
yep.
understand boundaries, to understand the way that your voice can show up, verbal or not, non-speaking, in all arenas. And that is something that needs to be
Yes.
drafted into curriculum of life skills at age appropriate times, um, that match same age peers,
Yes.
not matching perceived intellectual abilities.
And there are ways that could be done because they were like, like for sports games, non-disabled students were running the concession stands. Why can't
Mhm.
the disabled students and the non-disabled students work together at the concession stands?
Mhm.
That's had been done. Why can't
Mhm.
we have, if we're gonna have these like special life skill moments, why can't non-disabled and disabled students do those life skills together? Because non-disabled students need life skills too.
Oh, for sure. I
Like
mean,
I actually
yeah.
like why is it just being given to the IDD sorry, to
Mm-hmm.
the intellectually
Right.
disabled students? It
Mm-hmm.
should be given to all students.
Well,
And
trust.
that's what
Yeah.
other element of the segregation that causes harm. Because the non-disabled students would see like some of the like the little like they would take the self-contained classroom students to restaurants and stuff to do like practicing and stuff.
Hmm.
And non-disabled students would find out about this and be like, "That's not fair. Why don't we get to
Mm.
go to a restaurant and get
Feels
to
like
go to the
privilege.
Walmart?"
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it caused resentment. That's why they started calling that little bus the short bus, the
Mm-hmm.
Todd card. That's what they called it at my school. It was
Mm-hmm.
awful. I'm sorry I had to. That's what they called it. So I just wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they used to
But
call
you
it.
but, but you can when we're not treating all kids equally, you
Yeah,
can create a bigger divide.
and the thing is that there were the non-disabled students didn't realize like yeah, if you're one of those self-contained students, you're not getting a full education.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting a full education. You're not getting, you're being humiliated, ritually humiliated constantly. And this is why I saw this because I would be coming back from the self-contained classroom and go into my gen ed classroom, and everybody be like, "Ugh, great, she's here. Why in the heck is she here? Like they
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
did not want me there,
Like you
and
did not
they
belong.
are you from this Bloom's class? What are you doing here? Oh, that's
Hmm.
one of those high need students. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'd be trying to get to lunch, I would have students trying to trip me
Mm-hmm.
on my way to lunch, and I would fall on the ground, and people would laugh, and it would be guys a lot of the times. But it was
Yeah.
by having the segregated option, it made being included hell. I'm just going to be
Mm-hmm.
honest about it. It made me want to be segregated. I actually started resenting my parents trying to fight me to be segregated
Hmm.
because I was like, why am I having to be tortured like this? I'm already hated.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that the reason they were doing that, they wanted me to know how to vote. They
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to get married. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to go to college. They
Hmm.
wanted me to be fully educated. They wanted me to know about the Constitution. They wanted
Hmm.
me to be able to have political views.
Hmm.
To
Be
do
able
whatever
to,
it is you wanted to be able to do, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just very grateful to them now, but
Yeah.
back then I did not understand what was happening to my peers. I did
Yeah.
not understand that the um the way we were being treated, it was not helping, it denying us an education, and to get an education, you had to be separated from your peers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I didn't really get to be connected with my community until my adulthood. And I joined Special Olympics, and I remember being in school and wanting to be in track. I wanted to be in sports, and my parents would not let me be in sports at
Mm.
Hmm.
all.
Why do you think
And
that was?
so because of my feet issues,
Okay.
because of my
Okay.
arthritis in my feet, but I actually could have been in sports.
Hmm.
It's just I needed to be in something more recreational, not the
Mm.
Yeah. Super competitive.
varsity,
Yeah.
not the competitive ones, but more like I would have loved to join Special Olympics when I was a child.
Yeah.
Mm.
I wish that my parents had not been so fearful of me identifying with my identity, being okay with
Mm.
me. Because I think that they were scared that by me identifying with it, I was going to limit myself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that I was just going to let the school limit me, and I
Hmm.
wasn't going to want to fight for the things that they wanted me to fight for. And
Mhm.
I realize now that those things are totally worth it now. But when I was a kid, I just didn't understand, and I just wanted to be with my friends that I related with.
I
And
think
that's the hard thing is by having the segregation, I wasn't allowed to be with my peers, and my peers weren't being allowed to be with me. And the times I got to be with my peers, I wasn't being given an education,
Hmm.
hmm
and my peers weren't being given an education.
Hmm.
hmm
And I want a world, my vision is that we get rid of the segregation and we support all students in a universal design
hmm
way, that we don't make it so that students with disabilities have to be in a separate room to be given an education. We
Yeah.
should just be given an education, and if there have to be extra peers or extra teachers in the room to help, then let's do it that way. Have more hands in one room than separating all of us. Because by separating us, it creates this us versus them, this othering, this dividing, this it made me hate myself. Like I hated myself for being disabled and not being able to hide it.
Mm.
Can I
And
ask you something about that though? Some students with that require the support of a para feel like the para, just having a para there, sets them apart from their peers, and that their peers talk to their para instead of them. That because they have a para, when there's a group project, they get teamed with their para instead of a peer. Do you think that even the para model can be
yeah,
dividing in some ways?
yeah, because I agree. I think the parents, I sometimes would call my parent a fly because she would be buzzing over me. And when she
Mhm.
would do that, I would call her a fly. I'd be like, hey, hi, Fly Johnson.
You've
Hi,
Yeah.
actually
Fly
said that.
Johnson.
You said that to her or him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I called her, it was a her. I called her Fly Johnson or just Fly. My
Mhm.
fly, my fly. It's my
Mhm.
fly
So I
buzzing
think to
around
that
me.
end, that there's education required on training required
Yeah.
on what it is like to be a para educator, to support a person in inclusion and not further isolate them.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I think I feel like that when my parent would try to talk for me and stuff. But other
Mhm.
times I liked my parent being there because people didn't bully me if my parent was
Mm,
there.
true.
Mm.
But I also want there would be times where my parent would set me up to be hated. So I was working on a project on an assignment, and the parent came up to me and said, "Oh, you don't need to do this part of the assignment."
Oh,
Right
right.
next to me was another student that could hear that and why
Mm.
does she not get to do that?
Yeah,
And was
yeah.
really angry
The
that I didn't have
accommodation
to do
ended up
that
being
part of the
resentful.
assignment, but he still had to do that part of the
Yeah.
assignment, and it made him really angry. And I didn't know what to do. I was just sitting there like,
Yeah.
what? I didn't
Yeah.
even have a problem with doing that part. Okay,
And really that was probably something that it might have been something that had been even decided in your IEP that you weren't even aware of, right?
Right,
That
yeah,
you don't have to do
yeah,
all
because
of
I
the
don't know what's
assignment.
in my IEP. I have no
Right.
idea.
But it's
but
that
sometimes those
social emotional piece that's huge. And throughout this whole conversation, you've been talking about that social emotional piece and the friendships and that divide. And I just want to know a couple little micro moves, Ivanova, that people can make, because if you went to a classroom tomorrow that had a self-contained class, they're not going to get rid of it the next day, right?
Yeah.
So what can classrooms do? Like you were talking about the coffee cart. I was in a school that had a coffee cart and I didn't think about it the way that you're telling me right now, right? But
I think
the
pay the
fact that,
students and
right,
then make it available for all students to do it,
right,
not
the
just,
gen ed and yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Or are they also learning to read and write and do academics in that class in addition, right? Or is that
yeah.
in
Yeah, and
instead of?
and
So,
I've thought about that too. Like, if you want, it's like, okay, if we can't get rid of the self-contained part, at least be giving them age appropriate materials and give them actual education on history and
mm-hmm,
social studies and science and
mm-hmm.
math and
So expanding the topics, the
like,
subjects. Yeah.
don't make it all about doing chores or watching like very, very, very like cartoonists. Like they just haven't watched movies sometimes. They just have
Hmm.
them sit there and watch a movie because
Yeah.
that's all. Or like and don't give them things that non-disabled students are not getting. Like, I don't understand this. Like, oh, we can give you, a swimming class, but we're not going to give the non-disabled students a swimming class. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That
Mm.
just causes resentment. That's cause make it available for everyone so that everyone gets to be included and that we all get to be included and not be seen as othered. Like,
Hmm.
And if they
um.
don't know how to do that, I think sometimes it comes from a place of not knowing, right? And not teachers don't want to do the
Yeah.
wrong thing, but they think I'm not exactly sure what to do, what is, best practice for this and moving towards this inclusion. But there are resources, right? Like you and I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
There's
and
resources out
I
there.
think leveled text has come a long ways, and leveled text, even with the ability for AI to go, okay, this is what this is, and let's put this at a grade level that we feel like this person is reading at, or that this person can
Yeah.
understand. And by the way, I think we all need leveled text depending on what law we're reading or what what we're voting on. But I think that there are small things that can be done. I feel like the theme seems to be, people are doing the best they can with the tools they have. We all need some more tools. And one of the things that is a tool now is to be sure that people with disabilities are a part of every conversation, because that is the biggest asset to making full change,
Yes. That
is
is
that
really
all the voices,
important.
the people that are being impacted are able to weigh in on this, even if the people are not yet adults,
Yes.
because we do let student bodies make decisions about things. We do let voices be heard at every level of education in some way. And so that needs to be honored across the grades, across the ages.
Yeah.
We're asking everyone at the end here, um, what would you want what if you could plant one idea today, just one idea today, what would it be? What would you want people to leave this conversation thinking about?
I would love to plant that we can all learn. We all learn. We just all learn in different ways. We may learn at different paces. Not sometimes we need help expressing our knowledge of things, and we may not be able to express it on pen and paper, but we still deserve to learn things and be educated on things. We need the information just as much as the rest of the student body needs the information. And it just making the information in plain language and doing that is the first best step.
Hmm.
Is, looking at the classroom you're in now, like, what am I not teaching my students
Hmm.
that they really need to learn?
Mm.
Yeah,
Like,
presuming potential to learn.
like
Sure.
so I think that's the biggest one. And just looking
Yeah.
at where your gaps are and and looking at small ways that you can fix those gaps in your curriculum. Because every teacher, I know you have some power over your curriculum. And so I encourage teachers to think about their curriculums and think about, okay, what am I not teaching my students that my students are being harmed by not knowing?
Hmm.
Like, think about what we need to know when we get older
Hmm.
and when we're not being taught. and look at the curriculums for the non-disabled students.
Mm-hmm.
What is in that curriculum that needs to be in your curriculum?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's important. Doesn't have to be everything. Don't have to be, I'm not saying, teach us trigonometry, trying to teach us trigonometry overnight,
Mm-hmm.
but I am saying we deserve to know information that will help us be better adults because we
Mm-hmm.
are going to become adults. We do not stay mentally as children. We
Mm-hmm.
grow. We become adults. We need to be prepared for that, and education needs to recognize that.
And that
Thank
is
you.
something that educators can do right tomorrow. Look at your
Yeah.
Yep.
your curriculum, see what's missing. I love that, Ivanova. You're amazing for sharing your story. Being so candid about this is it's brave, and it's
Right.
also
Yeah.
so helpful for so many people. I just know I've learned a lot just talking to or listening to you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited for people to listen to your story
Yes.
and for what they might think and say, "Oh my gosh, yes, I've had that experience," or "Wow, I'm going to be like her and I'm going to stick up for my friends, stick
Yeah.
up for myself." So, thank you for
Yeah.
being here
Yes.
today.
Thank you for being on here.
Yeah. And I definitely encourage other students, if you see something that doesn't look right, call it out. Don't be afraid to be a whistleblower. We need whistleblowers, and we need people to call this stuff out. And I think that's what sparked my passion for this. Is I really want a full education for all of my peers and for all of our future generations. I want, I want doctors with intellectual disabilities. There can be doctors with intellectual disabilities. You just need to give people the right tools and the right ways to educate.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can learn.
Yep.
We can be good people. We can be taught how to be good people too. We can learn right and wrong too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Ivanova.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
The contents of this podcast were developed under contract with the Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, U.S. Department of Education, and administered by Central Washington University. However, those contents did not necessarily represent the policy of the OSPI and CWU, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal and state government.